buckle up, you guys. I think it's time to buckle up. It's time to understand that best laid plans need to be reevaluated from time to time.
They now have to keep printing or we crash.
We've got this ticking time bomb.
Talking gold with the one and only Andrew Maguire.
Welcome to Live from the Vault.
Hi there, my name is Shane Moran, and I'll be your host for this week's episode of Live from the Vault. And welcome to the show that goes beyond the headlines and uncovers the truth about the precious metals industry and the effects on the global economy in these historic times. With exclusive access to experts and insiders, we reveal information and insights that you simply won't find anywhere else. Now, this week, we have the one and only Andrew Maguire, precious metals expert and whistleblower in the vault. And to help him pull back the curtains, we'll be joined by a returning guest, and by popular demand by you, the Live from the Vault community, we have Andy Schectman, president and owner of Miles Franklin. That's right, Andy Schectman is in the vault, and you're not going to want to miss a word of this conversation. So just before we head over and introduce our featured guest and head over to the UK, of course, please help us spread the word about this channel by hitting that like button. If you haven't already done so, hit the like button right now. Share this information so more people can become aware of the channel. And if you haven't subscribed, be sure to subscribe. And in addition, if you click on that bell right now, right there, you see the bell there, we'll notify you as each episode goes live. So let me tell you a little bit about Andy Schectman. He is the president and owner of Miles Franklin. And Andy's been a precious metals expert and been in the industry since 1990. He started off in Minnesota, and his firm has an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau, of course, and is one of the less than 30 companies worldwide to ever be approved by the U.S. Mint as an authorized reseller of U.S. minted products. So with that, let's head over to the UK and Andy Maguire. He'll be joined, of course, by our special guest, Andy Schectman. So over to you, Andy.
Well, Andy, thank you so much for coming back. I tell you what, we get so many requests for you, and I really appreciate you making the time to come and parachute in here at the Live from the Vault. And I'm desperate to ask you your take on some of the stuff. I mean, it's been a wild couple of weeks, basically.
Yeah, it sure has been. But the privilege is mine, Andy, and I hope you know that. It's an honor to be here, and I'm always glad to jump into the vault. So thanks for having me, my man.
Well, look, let's start with one of the things. I always like trying to find things that very few other people talk about. You were you're one of the only people I know who really picked up ages ago on the Bank of International Settlements. Why did they cover all their 500 tons of gold shorts in November 2022 before they turned gold into a first year asset class? Why did they do that? And then I saw you connect the dots the other day to mBridge, and really, I mean, it suddenly all makes sense. But give me your take on that process, because so many people just have not looked at this.
Yeah, and it's funny because it just kind of dawned on me at one point, and I don't know what triggered the realization. And again, Andrew, I think a lot of this, you don't have to be a rocket scientist or even particularly astute to see the crumbs that are left at our feet. The question is, can you put these crumbs together in the form of a cookie? And that's what I try to do. Now, I don't know for sure that I'm right, but I'll take you down that road for the privilege of your listeners anyway, my line of thinking. And you're right, it starts with the BIS, who I think it does things in a way that just scream, really? What I mean by that, and to your point, was, in 2017, when the Bundesbank said, give us back our gold, just give us back our gold already after 3 years of trying. What became interesting was the other banks within a few weeks that decided to do the same thing, repatriating their gold from the New York Fed, that being the Bank of Hungary, Turkey, Poland, Austria, the Czech National Bank, the Dutch National Bank. All of these banks said, give us back our gold, which was unusual in 2017 after 6 years of the market heading down. And the following year in 2018, those same banks bought more gold as a group than they did in the previous 60 years combined. All right, now something's unusual. And I'm talking about it nonstop. In 2019, I start doing YouTubes, and those banks that bought more gold as a group than they did in the 60 years previously combined while repatriating all their gold from the New York Fed and the Bank of England, they doubled that amount in 2019. And then just somehow miraculously by coincidence, the BIS said, that's right, gold is the only other tier one asset. And that's really when I started to follow you very closely, because you might have been the only other one around that was talking about this. And it started to make sense to me, like, yeah, well, the BIS obviously is the most powerful bank on the planet, told these central banks, listen, here's the plan. It's going to be reclassified tier one. You might want to bring it home. You might want to start buying it. Just became obvious to me. So we'll fast forward to where we are now. And I want you to keep in mind the BIS again and the way that they operate. So over the last couple of years, it's been well documented that the central banks have bought more gold than at any time in central bank history. And what's been unusual about the gold acquisition over the last several years, to me, is the repatriation. And just a simple Google search will show you that Germany, Austria, Slovakia, Argentina, the Netherlands, Saudi Arabia, just a few weeks ago, Hungary, Belgium, Egypt, just a few weeks ago, Senegal, just a few weeks ago, Romania, Nigeria, just a few weeks ago, Poland, Ghana, just a few weeks ago, India, that's an interesting one, bought 1.5 times the amount of gold they bought all of last year within the first 4 months of this year. Last year being a record year for central bank buying, and they bought 1.5 times the amount they did all of last year in the first 4 months of this year and had it shipped home, along with 100 metric tons of gold that were held at the Bank of England since 1991. Turkey, France, Serbia, Venezuela, Algeria, Cameroon, South Africa, just a few weeks ago, Czechoslovakia, and many others. That's just a simple Google search. But all of those central banks brought all of their gold home. Now, the conventional wisdom would be, look, the United States just stole $5 billion in assets from the Russian government. And I don't like the word sanction, because it's not sanction, it's default, and it's stealing. And when Janet Yellen can say to CNN, hey, listen, we're okay with Xi and Putin being friends and allies. And my initial thought is, well, geez, thank you so much, Madam Secretary. That's rather benevolent of you. But she says if Putin or Xi gives 1 penny to the Putin war machine, we will sanction their banks, their companies, and Beijing itself. Never mind the fact that we've given $260 billion to the Ukraine with no congressional oversight, Stinger missiles and F-16 jets and the intelligence on where to drop it, because we're the world reserve currency. Doesn't matter what we do. It only matters what you do. And this is the rallying cry, of course, that I've focused on for a very long time. And that would be the conventional wisdom. They're all bringing their gold home from the Bank of England and the New York Fed, because what once was Western rule of law and safe jurisdictions doesn't really fit the bill anymore, when the European Union just stole the interest on $280 billion worth of Russian assets to provide a loan to the Ukraine. This is a line you don't come back from, in my opinion. And the rest of the world is like, things need to change. Well, that's a conventional wisdom, but I don't think it's right. It's only part of the reason why they're bringing their gold back. So let's focus on the BIS again and Project mBridge and the unit token, and think of the way the BIS operates, or at least did that back in 2017. I believe they told the banks in 2016 or 17, you got the Basel III, gold's going to be reclassified tier one, start buying it, maybe bring it home. So they gave them 2.5 to 3 years head start. So let's look at the way they're doing things now. So you have a meeting a few weeks ago in Novograd, Russia, that coincided with the G7 meeting. And, we were told at the beginning of the year there'd be 200 BRICs meetings leading up to the big one in October. And three things that I think came out of the out of the BRICS meeting in Novigrad that are very substantial. Number one, the Royal Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia was invited to the G7 meeting, and he said, I'm busy. But at the same time, he sent his financial ministers to the meeting in Novigrad. Turned down the G7 meeting in Italy, which was a big deal as far as I'm concerned. It's a snub. It's one of these little crumbs that you can see, right? So sends his finance ministers to the Novigrad meeting where two very important things came out. Now, I know that you have, and I have been talking about the fact that the BRICS would issue some form of a currency that would be backed by commodities and by currencies, largely because of Sergei Glaziev. And Sergei has told us this for 3 years. I've done 3,000 videos talking about Sergei and his plan to issue some form of a settlement currency backed by a basket of commodities, as he said, and a basket of BRICS plus currencies. And reclassifying gold tier 1 just made so much sense that this would be the predominant asset within the basket of commodities. So there was a meeting on the sidelines, two meetings on the sidelines at the BRICS meeting in Novigrad. But the first thing that I want to mention is that they came out and said 59 countries have formally expressed interest in joining. Now, we don't know which 59 countries they are, but you put them together with what we already have, add in the Belt Road Initiative, the Eurasian Economic Union, which, by the way, Sergei Glaziev is the finance minister for the Eurasian Economic Union. And I've been saying for a long time, I'm sure you have too, that the Eurasian Economic Union and the Shanghai Cooperation Organization would join together with BRICS. You got the president of Belarus calling for a summit to do just that. They will join. But you put those two groups in with the BRICS, in with the Belt Road, and the 59 countries that are applying, you're talking the majority of human population. Not just that, two of the three largest nuclear arsenals in the world, the majority of global GDP, the majority of commodity production and refining. This is no small deal. So anyways, Dilma Rousseff, the former president of Brazil, now the head of the BRICS New Development Bank, not a small position, came out and said, I had two meetings on the sidelines with Sergei Glaziev and Putin. And in principle, we have agreed to a new settlement currency. And I think it's important to highlight the word settlement. This is not a BRICS currency. It is a common settlement currency that they are proposing. And she said, in principle, we have agreed to it. It will be called the unit. And it will be 40% gold in kilobar form, deliverable on request, and 60% a basket of BRICS plus currencies. And, they took out the commodity part and just used gold, the only other tier 1 asset, which the central banks have been buying hand over fist. Just makes sense, right? So in reading the white paper on the unit, I noticed some very interesting things. But before I touch on that, if you look at Project mBridge is a cross-border payment service and or vehicle that sidesteps the SWIFT and allows for these countries to trade their central bank digital currencies with one another outside the Western intermediary banks. No SWIFT, no sanctioning, if you will. And it was a joint effort between China, Hong Kong, Thailand, and the United Arab Emirates. Talked about that for over a year. And, I've been saying for a while, I'm sure as you have, that gold and oil seem to have been remonetized across the globe, that they are worth more than the currencies that are used to buy them, certainly worth more than the dollars that are used to buy them. And it's interesting that the first two trades they did on mBridge last year was China trading with United Arab Emirates digital yuan for gold and for oil. You look at oil as being remonetized. China was awarded a $2 billion contract to remodernize the largest airport in Iran, paid for with oil. It used to be paid in dollars. Now it's paid in oil. And certainly when we look at gold and its role or replacing the treasury bond, it's doubled the performance of the 10-year treasury in the past 25 years and has no counterparty liability. It can't be sanctioned or stolen. And so you see a lot of countries that are using gold to replace the long bond and using oil as a form of money. Okay, all of that being said, let's go back to Project mBridge. Who's behind Project mBridge besides those 4 countries? Oh, lo and behold, it's the BIS. And Saudi Arabia just became a full participant in Project mBridge. Let me say that one more time. Saudi Arabia, the largest producer of oil in the world, just became a full participant in Project mBridge, which is not compatible with US dollars that the BIS is behind. Now, think of the way the BIS did things in 2017, 18, and 19. And I know they said to these banks, we're going to reclassify it tier 1, get your gold. So if you look at all of these banks that I just mentioned, nearly 40 banks that have brought all of their gold home, and if you look at the massive amount of gold purchasing over the last couple of years by the central banks, BIS is at it again, I would have to think. Because if you read the white paper on the unit token that will trade on Project mBridge, it says something very interesting, and that is that the baskets that will be used to mint these tokens, that each country will mint, will be 60% BRICs plus currencies. And by the way, I did an interview with Vince Lancy not too long ago, and he thinks, and I think it's genius, that China, Russia, maybe India, they will do all they can to back their central bank digital currency with some form of gold backing so that it comprises the majority of the currencies within the basket. But anyways, it says that the baskets, 60% currency of BRICs plus countries, 40% gold in kilo bars deliverable on demand, will be minted, pulled out of circulation, put into an escrow account. Here's the key: within the borders of the countries that possess said gold. They do not need to send their gold to a central authority like Beijing, like Moscow. No, every country will have their own baskets of these unit tokens that are put in escrow and audited independently, continuously, with very strict penalties for abandoning in any respect the protocol of the unit ecosystem. And so you have independent auditing, but the key is within their own borders. So with all of these countries buying gold and bringing it home, it just reeks of the BIS again, who is behind Project mBridge. And what it also says is that these countries will use their own central bank digital currencies. It's not a common currency. So if you look at all of the countries that make up 99% of GDP, every one of them has a CBDC in production or already working, operational. And so every one of these countries will be able to maintain their own monetary autonomy. They won't have to first convert to a dollar with the Western banks, KYC and AML, anti-money laundering, know your client, very lengthy time lag, costly. Instead, they'll all have their own CBDCs and trade over Project mBridge with one another. And if it gets to the point where a country says, listen, I have enough digital yuan, or I have enough digital rupee or ruble, whatever, I want to, and you want to buy energy or a commodity, let's use the unit token. The unit token will be 40% gold in kilo bars, 60% BRICs plus currencies. The gold is deliverable if indeed you want. That's all over mBridge. And if they said they're going to come out, in principle, they've agreed to this. They're going to have a meeting in September in China to ratify it. If they roll it out in October, if they truly do, what does that say for the future of the dollar, which we don't need it anymore? Obviously, we can use our own CBDCs and trade with one another, free from the Western meddling and sanctioning and theft. And if we need to settle in something bigger, well, we can do the unit. And so that takes away all impetus to own U.S. treasuries. Instead, you stockpile gold because it has doubled the performance of the 10-year treasury. It's the only other tier 1 asset, and they can't frickin' steal it from you. So as far as I'm concerned, Andrew, if this happens, you can argue, I can argue that they've lit a fuse already on the dollar. We've lost the hegemony. That happened arguably a few weeks ago when Saudi Arabia said, yeah, we'll still take dollars, but we're going to take other currencies too. They didn't sign the exclusivity deal or re-sign it. Okay, so the hegemony is gone. The supremacy isn't. But what happens if all of a sudden the majority of human population now has no impetus to stockpile dollars as they have for 50 years, creating a synthetic demand for the dollar, and have no impetus to stockpile treasuries, which was the other half of the petrodollar deal, where we reinvest all excess proceeds in treasuries, which have performed nowhere near as good as gold. And we have proven that if, you know what, you're on the wrong side of our ideological thinking, we're going to take your assets. And that, I think, is the whole reason you're seeing all of these countries not only accumulate tons of gold, bring it home. So it's twofold. It's the meddling and the suppression and the confiscation of assets, and it's the unit token. And if it is indeed ratified, to which the head of the BRICs and Development Bank said, yeah, in principle, we've agreed to it, it's a big deal, maybe the biggest deal ever, right up next to gold being tier 1 revised.
Yeah, I mean, do you know, I suggest people play that back twice, because you've covered there detail which I think a lot of people just don't understand. And I think, you know, essentially, while Glasnev had two currencies that he proposed, and one was, you know, gold backed with an SDR type of arrangement, and the other one backed by commodities, essentially, this is a perfect solution, because what's to stop you using the unit token, this fungible unit token, to buy any commodities? And basically, as these BRICS members, you talk about, you know, almost 60 additional members here coming on board. I mean, between the BRICS members, they either produce or consume most of these commodities. So, of course, this makes so much sense, and it really does. It does explain why so much gold is being purchased. And to me, this kind of leads on to a ludicrous situation where it was being gaslighted that China stopped buying gold in May. Well, we know that was rubbish, because, you know, yeah, of course. I mean, they're taking a leaf out of the Fed's book and saying, well, okay, well, let's play that game. Let's get the price down a bit. Maybe these fools will listen to us. And the Fed is bound to try and use that to hammer the price down. And down they there wait for that to happen, because they know the game so well. And of course, then we find out that then there's empirical evidence that the 400-ounce bars are leaving London. It's monetary gold. Of course, you arrive in China. There's 47 customs locations, 4,000 offices. I mean, this stuff is untrackable. Of course, it comes in at monetary gold. And then we've got Setster's, Brad Setster, ex-Treasury official, bemoaned, and I've put up the Bloomberg link, and I'm sure you've seen it, bemoaning the fact that China has $3 trillion, is largely US denominated, shadow banking reserves. Well, of course. What do you think? Where do you think all this buy? Because China can't buy in renminbi or in their currency. They have to buy this gold in dollars or euros or yen, but it's mostly dollars. So this is, to me, it's ludicrous that a lot of people got gaslighted into thinking, well, maybe I should just jump out. Wrong. Big mistake.
Yeah. In every interview I did over that time period, I said it's crap. First of all, my entire career, you know, I've been doing this for 34 years, and I can remember back in the day, everyone said China lies about the amount of gold that they have or produce, because their numbers stayed somewhere near 1,200 tons forever. They never updated it. And they've been producing between 300 and 500 metric tons a year forever alone, but they're the largest producers. They're the largest importers. And I said, it's a bunch of nonsense. If the commercial banks that work by proxy for the PBOC are buying gold from the refiners in South Africa and Switzerland, I don't think they're telling the IMF how much they bought. If on behalf of the PBOC, if they are buying gold that's not 995 pure or 995 pure or less, they're not telling the IMF how much they're buying. You had the head of the IMF come out and say that their numbers are fugazi, that they're not right, that they are understating it. You had the lead analyst for the Bank of Montreal say the same exact thing. And then there was just a report that came out that said, because the bullion banks take care of the gold transport for the PBOC, shipments from London to Beijing are disclosed in UK customs data. And the customs data reveals that the PBOC continued to buy gold in May. Yeah, it was gaslighting to drive the price down 100%. And I think, indeed, if you think about it, why the hell would they be open and forthright? If indeed we are moving to a system that will have gold behind it, like the unit, why would they ever want to tell anyone how much they own? And look at the way that we in the United States do not disclose how much gold we have. Supposedly we have 8,300 metric tons, yet it hasn't been audited since 53. And when Ron Paul asked to audit our own gold, it gets turned down. So, I think it's a situation where they have every vested interest, shall we say, in not being forthright about it. And I think it's a bunch of nonsense that the Western media runs with this, because after 18 months of recording purchases, go back and look at what happened way back when. They never updated their numbers. And so this is a deal, as you mentioned, of complete and total gaslighting. And look what it did to the price. And that's the idiocy of the Western investor who does things reactionary instead of being proactive, seeing things for what they are, understanding that in the end, the numbers will play out. And being so reactionary means you'll never win in investing, because by the time you are reacting, the big money has already positioned themselves. And so this is why so few people ever succeed in investing, because they are reactionary instead of trusting their gut, trusting the numbers, and understanding that, it doesn't, this is all noise. You just have to look at the end game. And the end game is the dollar's in big trouble. We are heading for a very bumpy road. And you can see it by the fact that the most well-funded, but more importantly, well-informed traders in the world, the central banks who are being told probably by the BIS what is coming, have been buying gold at a rate that no one has ever seen before. And you know how they're doing it? The reason that all of this is our own stupidity in the UK and the United States, because we suppress the hell out of the price of gold and silver on the LBMA and on the COMEX that allows these large institutions to run cover, to under the cover of suppression, to stand for delivery. And that's the difference, is that, most of my career, no one stood for delivery. Now they are. That's how they beat us at the game. And you can see it by the amount of deliveries coming off the LBMA, coming off the COMEX. You can see it if you just pay attention, but you got to dig. And the Western media is doing such a disservice to the public by not telling them what's happening, because you can't get out of the way of what you don't see coming. And I would say to you, something like this could go from a little trickle to bang, just like that. Yeah. If indeed they do announce, gold is tier one, all the banks have been buying it, and it is going to be part of a new system. And I'll tell you, the IMF notices it too. And I wouldn't be surprised to see that. In fact, I did want to just bring up one thing. I don't mean to monopolize the time, but I just want to bring up one thing. The head of the Dutch National Bank keeps talking about the gold revaluation account. And you can't make it up in the respect that gold is held on every central bank balance sheet in an account called the gold revaluation account. Does that mean they understand where it's going, that they're going to revalue it? I always say inflate, default. I said option 3, find a villain, incentivize the world to dump dollars, dump treasuries, go green, tell Saudi Arabia we're going a different direction. Everyone dumps dollars. The whole system resets. As rates spike, you find a villain. But there is option 4. And that option 4 will be to revalue the price of gold as high as hell. And now your balance sheet goes from putrid to pristine, just like that. And the Dutch National Bank, the head of it, keeps talking about it. Yeah, our balance sheet is turned upside down, but we got 20 billion euro in the gold revaluation account. And yes, we're not able to use it right now. We can't offset it with the liability. That's the rules at this point. But how easy would it be to change that? And by the way, all of these banks hold it at $35 an ounce and on their balance sheet. 42.22 in the United States. Not sure why there's that difference, but it is. Anyways, the bottom line is, and now you have a congresswoman or a senator, Senator Loomis, from who gave a speech right after Trump at the Bitcoin conference, who wants to, she proposed a bill, strategic Bitcoin reserve to be funded partially by revaluing Fed's gold, draft bill shows. So again, gold is going to go higher than anyone thinks possible, whether it be there, or even the IMF, who put a report out at the beginning of 2023, gold, international reserve currency, a barbarous relic no more, ? And Kristalina Georgieva, the head of the IMF, said a CBDC that's not pegged to something is just fiat. Well, what the hell are you going to peg it to but the only other tier one asset? I mean, come on. So gold will, I think, outperform everybody's expectations. But to your point, Andrew, the gaslighting, the reactionary environment in the West is silly. And I think if you can't see where this is going and you just react to the news in the West, I mean, it's funny because all of a sudden you get Reuters talking about China stopping buying gold, but they never talk about gold. But if it's negative, yeah, they'll talk about it. So I don't know. I think you just have to listen to guys like you and see the truth for what it is and understand that gold is wealth. It's not an investment. And I guarantee you the central banks aren't buying it to get wealthy. They understand it is wealth and it will back a new system.
Absolutely, wealth protection. And I think what was also interesting is that this divergence, a clear pivot divergence between really the Bank of International Settlements and all the other Western-facing central banks, as well as all the global central banks, have diverged from the Fed. The Fed is the only central bank on this planet Earth that is still trying to manage. They obviously they can't stop the rise, but they're trying to manage the rise in gold, and they can only do it by operating within the siloed. I call it the casino. This siloed little world where the CTAs operate on open interests, which are 4%, basically 4% of skin in the game. They never take delivery, and that game. But that open interest is significantly contracting from something like 800,000 lots in 2020 down to, and it got to about half of that, and it's up and down a little bit. But I mean, really, what it's saying is the Fed is managing a retreat. But Andy, what the hell are they going to do? Because, as you say, they're 8,300 odd tons of treasury gold that they manage. It is so clearly rehypothecated. It clearly is. Otherwise, as you say, why not audit it? Furthermore, why would you have blocked the head of the Bundesbank auditor to even come in the vault and look at the gold? Well, because they knew that maybe the gold is there, but is it there in the same form? Because certainly some of the bars that they received were melt bars.
Right.
And it was going to take 7 years. I mean, come on. I mean, obviously, red flag after red flag. So my worry is, what the hell is the Fed going to do? They're on a slippery slope. They know that probably by October, that's probably the pivot point, because at this point, those lines are getting crossed, as you know, and as you tell everyone. The gold prices are being settled not in the paper markets in the West anymore. They're being settled outside. And obviously, when you're dealing with leverage events against unleverage, you're talking about a 96% leverage position, and you see the Fed. It has to be the Fed have borrowed 7 tons of gold from the BIS, leverage that 96%, and if you've got literally 55 billion of paper gold to play this game. But you're shooting yourself in the foot. So ultimately, they will have to revalue, because one bank revalues, or it's triggered at some point. When one bank revalues, they all revalue. What the hell is the Fed going to do?
I don't know. I mean, and maybe this is part of the, I mean, I've thought about that. Do they want to reset the system and blame it on a villain, or can they reset it by just jacking up the price of gold? I don't know. One is certainly going to be much less painful to the populace. That would be by revaluing the price of gold. And I think they notice that. They have that certainly within their view, but it just seems that the decisions that our politicians are making are pointing us in a direction of, isolation, where the rest of the world has no incentive to hold dollars, has no incentive to hold treasuries. And, I often talk about, you look at the United States as a place that most people growing up around the world have wanted to come and experience the freedom, the integrity of the judicial system. People have left other countries to come to America to, fleeing authoritarian regimes to have, justice. as that's being questioned. The electoral system, well, that's being questioned. The immigration system, that's being questioned. The lawlessness in the cities, the wokeness, everything that's going on in this country. You wonder, where the hell are we? What's happened to this great country? I see what's happening in the streets of the UK. I mean, things are upside down, and things need to change, and things are going to change. And I don't know if it'll be peacefully by revaluing the price of gold globally or not, or of a complete and total reset. You know, you look at the lead economic advisor to the U.S. government, this knucklehead named Jared Bernstein. He advocates for losing the reserve status. It's a privilege we can't afford. You look at the number two, Lael Brainerd, and if God forbid, you know, this current administration walks into the White House again, she'll be the head of the Fed. She's a modern monetary theorist. She worked at the Fed underneath Powell. She developed the CBDC with MIT, the Boston Fed. She ran Point for Fed Now, which came out 8 months ago, which is a instant settlement system backed by the Fed, like Venmo or Zelle. And, you know, who knows? She would like to see a reset. She would like to issue a CBDC. Maybe they can do it peacefully. I don't know. But to your point about the West not settling anymore, I mean, look at the $4 premium in silver to the LBMA and the COMEX price that we've seen forever on the Shanghai Exchange, which over the last 100 days, the volume has increased nearly 200%. And the combined volume of the Shanghai Metals and Futures Exchange now supersedes the COMEX, making it the number two most transacted platform on the planet behind the LBMA. We're beginning to see that these exchanges are getting more and more legitimate. And at some point, the Western system will be viewed for what it is, a Ponzi scheme. You can only manipulate a market or push a market in the direction that it is going for an extended period of time by pushing in the direction it's going. You can't hold back global demand, and especially global demand that is being orchestrated by the central banks, not in concert perhaps with the Fed. So times are different. You know, most of my career, Andrew, no one stood for delivery. But these countries now, which back when I started doing this, were many of them third world, are now sophisticated, coordinated, wealthy, and motivated. And they understand they don't need to drop bombs in the United States or in the UK to win. They just need to stand for delivery and buy all of the world's commodities. I saw a report that came out of the UK where the UK said, hey, listen, we're kind of screwed. All of our natural resources, we're reliant on other countries like the BRICs nations. And that's true. And if you look at what's happening right now in the United States, we're selling our treasuries largely to the UK. One broke nation selling their debt to another broke nation, taking the proceeds that we sell our treasuries to you folks for to pay the interest on the debt that's already outstanding and take what little is left extra to buy commodities across the globe from the BRICs nations, who take those dollars and buy gold, which keeps going higher, and gold, which will be the backing of a new system. So they're not buying treasuries, they're not stockpiling dollars. This little by little by little by little, then all at once, it's going to happen. It's logarithmic decay. I don't know what triggers it, but I think it's never been more clear to me that this is a path we are heading on. And is it peaceful through gold revaluation and dollar devaluation, or is it chaotic with an all-out dumping globally of dollars and treasuries, something called Operation Sandman, where they all agree to dump dollars and treasuries at a certain point and blow up the entire system, the byproduct of which would be interest rates spiking to compensate for that hyperinflation, as everyone who's stockpiled dollars for 50 years dumps dollars and they come home. I don't know, but I do know that if you are not a contrarian, you're damn well destined to be a victim. And if you keep all your money in dollars, you're going to go broke. That I do believe. I don't know when, but I think the logic is pretty easy to follow if indeed you pay attention.
Well, there's got to be a bias strike at some point when, I mean, you're talking about your government printing $1 trillion every 100 days, creating money out of thin air. Now, okay, so that's already, there's going to, at some point there's going to be some questioning about that, especially as, well, the only alternative first-year asset class is gold. And of course, that is why the mainstream media are just keeping that down, because that is a little gift they don't want to give away. But I guess this might be the trigger point, is when say in October, November, December, when oil and energy is priced in a gold-backed currency to a degree, what's the dollar price? If you wanted to buy that same barrel of oil in dollars, what the hell is that price going to be? And talk about an inflationary import into America. That, if anything, is going to collapse the bond market, because that kind of inflation pouring in would surely create a buyer's strike.
100%. And I think we can answer that question a little bit. Let me just find the number here real quick. Okay, here's the number. When we talk about how high will that be in dollars? Well, 10 years ago, an ounce of gold was 14,000 yen. And today it's 140,000 yen 10 years ago. Today it's 345,635 yen per ounce of gold. So did gold get really expensive, or did the currency that it's valued in get clobbered? And that's exactly what will happen to the Western currencies as they lose demand globally and are devalued. So the price of gold will go much higher, but it's not that gold went way higher, is it? Or is it the fact that the currency that is measuring it just got clobbered? And so when you're talking about no more petrodollar demand, which has been the synthetic demand for 5 decades, yeah, gold should go markedly higher in a currency that begins to globally lose complete and total demand and interest for holding it. So, yeah, I think there's no question the price goes higher, but that's not why you buy it. You don't buy it to get wealthy. You buy it because what's going to happen to the currency, and it's massive devaluation. You know, we're told that we're supposed to think that a 2% inflation rate is good. How about a negative 2%? Because the lower the inflation rate, the better the standard of living, the higher the standard of living. And if you believe that we really have 3% inflation here, I got some oceanfront real estate to sell you in Minneapolis. I mean, inflation is way higher than 3%. I wish it was only 3%. And of course, John Williams of Shadow Stats will tell you that inflation is probably 9, 10, 11% in reality. But the Fed and you know, the U.S. government has every interest to lie about those numbers, to maintain an inflationary path that all politicians have chosen, inflation over austerity, much easier to pay off a debt. And it's funny, you know, I think the reason I want President Trump to be president again is not because I think he can fix all of this stuff. Maybe he can. Maybe he can. I mean, Vance is talking the same way about the World Reserve status as Jared Knucklehead Bernstein is, that maybe it's not a good thing. And they keep talking about devaluing the dollar. Why I want Trump to be president is because I'm sick and tired of the lawlessness and the craziness in this country. We've let 20 million people in illegally. If 5% don't like us, that's 1 million people. That's a standing army. It's real. And just how upside down everything is in this country, the move away from the nuclear family and all of these things that are so important, that is coiled into this whole economic thing too. To talk one without the other is a mistake, because if this country was what it once was when I was a kid, where you respected authority, you held a door for a woman, yes sir, yes ma'am, you know, the nuclear family, where you were valued by your merit, not by your lifestyle, where the elections were never questioned, where the immigration system was something embraced, and it was a really good, amazing thing. If you came into this country, you got through the immigration process, you got your citizenship, you contribute, you assimilate. All of this stuff is upside down, and you look what's happened to our great cities, and the people around the world are saying, what the hell's happened to that country? It's all part of the same thing. So I don't know that either administration, I don't think Trump can fix what we've already destroyed. I think this administration has done more to inflict damage over the last 4 years than any external foe could have done, just by their stupidity. And I mean, I think we need a change for sure. But for me, it's not about economics. I don't know we can fix this. We've gone too far down the rabbit hole. You know, you say $1 trillion every 100 days. That's 31,688 years ago is 1 trillion seconds. That's $100,000 every second. 1, 2, 3, keep on going. And that's how much debt we're burying our children with. And so I don't know that we can get back from that, but God willing, we can at least get some sanity in this country and feel safe again, walking the streets of downtown Minneapolis, downtown Miami, which is better than most, downtown San Francisco, downtown New York City. I mean, really? That's a bigger deal to me, but it is all part of the same problem. And that's why I feel, and I've said for a long time, Andrew, and I don't know how you feel about this, but I feel it's almost too stupid to be stupid.
Yeah.
It's almost too stupid to not have been planned. And I hope I'm wrong. I got 3 kids. My youngest is 17. But it's very concerning to me. Maybe more concerning than anything is just what's happening within our beautiful countries, mine and yours.
You're right. And quite clearly, this has not happened by happenstance. This is planned. And it is basically the weaponizing of migration is a plan that ultimately leads, and this country or they're already talking about it, and the new prime minister has only been in place a month, martial law.
Yeah.
Basically, there'll come a point where they want to, you have to break something. This is the WEF agenda. You break something to build it back your way. And so I was warned about this. Someone told me, you better get a Swiss passport because, in 5 years from now, it'll slam shut because they won't let anyone else in. And it's like, suddenly you realize, hold on, everything from Ukraine, which is basically trying to dissolve the Sino-Russia alliance, nothing else, because that threatens the multipolar world from the unipolar kind of perspective. And so, of course, it has to be planned. There's no other way. We'd be stupid to think that it wasn't planned, because it is so obvious when you can't walk down the street, when your kids are getting raped, when you're getting, this is happening. People are being violently attacked. People are being beheaded in the streets in France. I mean, and it is literally, the police don't do anything because it's planned. And this is what I mean. It's like there has to be, what they're trying to do is do a reset. They will not succeed because we will push back. And I think that the point is, and at least we can protect ourselves, because one of the quickest way to get you to put your hand out is when you no longer have any money to buy food. And you need to, and I suspect strongly, Andy, you face a lot of people, everyday people. And I'm sure you say to them, listen, you need to protect yourself. You need to convert your dollars, your euros, whatever it is, into physical gold and silver, and at least protect yourself from this planned agenda.
Have you ever heard of the Cloward-Piven theory?
Not offhand.
Cloward-Piven theory is something you should research when you have time. You could Google it, and it's a 5-minute read. But when you read it, you're going to be like, holy crap. Could this really be true? Cloward and Piven is the names of 2 professors that taught at Columbia University, Cloward and Piven, husband and wife. And the whole theory is to overwhelm the inner cities, to overwhelm the entitlement programs, to create universal basic income, but to create a loyal serfdom of voters that will never again vote for anything but handouts. And if you think about 20 million plus people that have come into the United States illegally, this is exactly what fit the bill. They're trying to give them voting rights right now, which is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. They're in here illegally. 65% of all taxpayer-based subsidy payments, handouts, are for people that are in this country illegally. You think they're ever going to vote for Trump or a Republican Party that's talking about deportation? This Cloward-Piven theory was taught at Columbia University. And the interesting thing about it, Jared Bernstein went there, the lead economic advisor of the U.S. government, who has a degree in music and a master's degree in social work. He's really qualified to be the lead economic advisor. And so did Obama, Bill Barr, Eric Holder, Madeleine Albright, the current, what's his name? Anthony Bilkin. He went to all these people that are, you wonder, is it coincidence? I don't know. Google and read, for all of you out there listening, Cloward, C-L-O-W-A-R-D, Piven theory. And you'll be like, my God, they're doing this. They are trying to overwhelm the system. to create universal basic income, to overwhelm the cities. Look at the urban doom loop we see in the cities where no one's in buildings any longer. Everyone's working from home. All the businesses that sprung up around it are dying. And as those businesses leave, the quality of life begins to deteriorate. The income that comes and even the tax revenue that comes means less and less quality of life. So more people leave, which begets more people leaving, which begets more people leaving, which they're destroying the inner cities. And that's what Cloward and Piven calls for. And it's really interesting. They taught this class in Columbia University, so I think people should check it out and ask yourself, is it a coincidence or not? I don't know, because most people in this country would tell you that it was Obama running the country for the last 4 years, certainly not Biden. And the gaslighting, you want to talk gaslighting where, you know, all of a sudden the media turns on him. If you've been paying attention for 4 years, you could see his mental decline. And all of a sudden now they're just noticing it. The whole thing is really kind of concerning, Andrew. And that's why I do what I do. That's why I talk the way I do. Sometimes I think to myself, you know, geez, I hope I don't have a target on me because I say these things. I try to do it respectfully because this country has given me more than I could have ever dreamed for. I'm the least likely person to have achieved what I did over the last 34 years. I thank God every day I was born in the United States and it afforded me the opportunity. I am a patriot. I am the embodiment of the American dream. And I just don't think that dream, I think that dream could quickly turn into a nightmare. And I don't think that dream is as available as it was for me, a kid who started at 19 years old, this company in 1989 before the internet, on a wing and a prayer. And so it's very saddening to me. And I think when you look at it that way, along with the way that we've really screwed the pooch, if you will, by weaponizing the dollar, stealing assets, coercive all around the globe, massive money creation, fiscal irresponsibility, brain dead monetary policy, all of these things, and then throw in the complete degradation of this wonderful country. It's starting to move faster. And I would say, you know, I've been saying for the last 3 months that it's going to be crazy between now and the election. A quarter of an inch separates relative calm, if you want to call it, and chaos if he had been shot. Mm-hmm. And now they're saying another assassination attempt was foiled. Well, what do they have in store for us over the next 90, 100 days? Don't know. But I will say it's never been more important to own precious metals ever, not to become wealthy, but just to get the hell out of the way of what's coming. And, you know, like this Japanese crisis, the pricking of the everything bubble, the unwinding of the carry trade. It just so happens it happened on a Monday morning. Well, duh. It's going to happen that way. Whatever comes, it will come on a Sunday night, Monday morning. Been saying that forever. You will have no time to react. If you are reactionary, like you talked about the gaslighting and people being reactionary, you're dead. You have to understand that this is about, you know, you hope it never happens. Just like when you buy home insurance and you just pay your premium, You don't pull into your driveway and say, damn it, my house didn't burn down. I just paid my premium. No, you hope you never need to use it. Yeah. But if you do, you're damn glad you have it. And if not, in the case of gold, you give it to your children. What other form of insurance? Most insurance expires worthless unless there's a calamity or you die and your family gets it. With gold, if you don't need it, you give it to your family, or you use it for an opportunity when the dust settles. Maybe there will be, who knows? But anyways, it's so nice to talk to you, Andrew, because you're so logical and you get it. And so much of my thinking I gleaned from learning from you, and it's a privilege to be here. It's a privilege to talk to you. I hope more people listen to you because you're not getting this from the Western media in any way at all. So, like I said, it's just nice to be here and be able to, you know, get this off my chest. It's kind of cathartic. You should send me a bill like Dr. Andrew Maguire's psychology service. I feel much better now. So thank you.
Well, me too, because I think what we're doing is you're saying, yes, okay, there's chaos out there. There's the unknown out there, but there's some hope. And I always think there's hope because you've got a multipolar world, where borders are being taken down. Enemies have been forced to become friends. And it is building something spiritual in the sense there's a spiritual side to that. And as much as we're very unspiritual, when I say we, I mean collectively in the West, because we just have that unipolar view of the world, and it's a win-lose situation. In the multipolar world, it's a win-win situation. It has to be. And so really, collectively, they're so much more powerful. And I think there's the solution to me. It's heading that way. How do you fight that if you are sliding down the slippery slope? Yes, you might try all of these things. You might try to assassinate the Trump because he's really exposing the deep state's plans, and you might try all those things. But ultimately, all that short-term stuff is going to go down the Swanee, because literally, and this is the one thing about these episodes that we have you here, because what we're doing is we're talking about, Andy, we're talking about what can we do about it, and you're actually coming up with an actual solution. Yeah, we don't know what's going to happen, but we do have the power. We have this responsibility. We have the duty of responsibility to ourselves, our families, and our friends to make this known. And therefore, and you've just said there's only one thing we can do: literally protect ourselves from a financial perspective, because at least then we're not putting our hand out to the plan for us to do so. And enough of us get together, and every ounce, and I keep saying to people, every ounce you take from these criminals is actually 96 ounces of because you've just taken a 4% skin in the game position. You've taken it out, and you've actually taken the very fuel away from these fools. The only place left for the Fed to work the gold price down is in this siloed casino where no one has any view. The oxygen's in there. They have no view of the global world, and their fools keep taking this bait. And it's just, there is going to be less and less and less of them for the Fed to be able to do it. They're going to have to capitulate at some point, but at least your clients, the people that face you, will be on the right side of what's going to happen.
You know, Andrew, I remember reading about you and we all owe a debt of gratitude to Chris Powell and Bill Murphy.
Yes.
I remember reading about you in La Metropole, and I don't know, 20 years ago, maybe. If someone would have said to you 20 years ago that gold would be $2,400 an ounce and no one would know. I mean, if you walk up to someone in the street and say, what market has been at all-time highs and it's not the Dow Jones and it's not Bitcoin, most people would say, I don't know. Would you have ever believed that there would be such little amount of interest, Western interest in precious metals at all-time highs? I just as a thought, I mean, because here again, I try and help people and buy gold, and they're like, well, what has gold done? And the funny thing about it is you take Bitcoin out of the equation, it's outperformed every traditional asset in the United States, including the S&P 500 with dividends reinvested over the last 25 years. That's averaged 9.4%, whereas gold's 9.9%. It's the tortoise, not the hare. And here we are 25 years later. It's doubled the performance of the 10-year treasury. It's beat the S&P 500. It's been the best performing traditional asset, and no one notices it. It's really bizarre to me. I don't know if it's similar to that in London, but you know, when you see the ETF outflows in the West, that's emblematic of the public participation, I would argue. And just for people's, you know, thinking process, you have a supposedly, if we believe the BIS, I would take the BLS rather, Bureau of Labor Statistics. I take the L out of that phrase and just call it BS. But if we believe, you know, their numbers where inflation is, you have positive real yield on a short-term treasury, you have a strong dollar, and ETF outflows at a 45-degree angle, yet gold keeps marching higher. You know, what does that say? I don't know. What is the average person in the UK? How is their view or understanding of what gold is doing? Is it similar to what we have here in the U.S.?
Oh, very, very much so. And of course, in Germany, They have the experience of a Weimar Republic, and they have savings accounts coming out of their wages, and it's been going on forevermore. But yes, so they're here too. And I think the thing I say to people is when they say, "Well, why should I put any money into gold?" Well, no, gold has never gone up in price. It's just that every fiat currency that has come and gone in the thousands of years, including the Roman Empire, every fiat currency, and this one is about to fail again because they all have. And gold's done nothing it hasn't gone up. It's just that all the other currencies have collapsed against it. And I know that's something that you tell people all the time. It's not about making money. It's about wealth protection. And if gold for 6,000 years has not changed in value, still buys the same amount of things to make you feed you, clothe you, house you, it doesn't matter what the price of, maybe it's a $40 million home in America now. But I mean, I don't know what it is. But the point is, it's the same amount of gold that would have ever taken to build that brick. And right now, when people that take a bar from you of silver or gold or whatever it is, and there it is in their hand, you have the satisfaction of knowing all the energy that ever was there required to put into that bar is in it, and it cannot be debased anymore by these crooks. And I think that's all you can do, Andy.
Well, that's what the central banks are doing, and that's why they're part of the reason they're bringing it home.
Yeah.
Is that, Putin recently gave a speech in St. Petersburg where he said the Bretton Woods system is dead. It's true. It is dead. Bretton Woods won when we took over for the pound sterling in Bretton Woods, New Hampshire at the end of World War II. Bretton Woods II loosely when we became the petrodollar, and that's now been severed. As Zoltan Pozsar says, Bretton Woods III, he who has the commodities wins. This is all about commodities. And I think that's something that, he said, look, the Bretton Woods system is dead. The dollar is only value is the trust of the United States, and that trust has been squandered. So too has the credit, the full faith and credit of the U.S. We're so broke, it's ridiculous. Our spending addiction is insane. And when you talk about adding $100,000 of debt per second, 24/7, when you realize that a trillion seconds ago is nearly 32,000 years ago. That's Neanderthals stalking the plains of Europe.
Wow.
I mean, that's 1 trillion, and we're doing that every 100 days. So you put it all together, we have lost our trust. We have squandered the good graces of our foreign creditors. We're destroying the value of the currency. And yet everyone is just happy as a pig in mud buying NVIDIA and Bitcoin and Apple, thinking that instant gratification is not fast enough. And that's why they are not noticing what might be the most important thing to notice, and that is gold keeps on moving and protecting in the face of, as you say, of a dollar that's being destroyed right out from underneath us. So, yeah, man, I think the next 100+ days are going to be, as the Chinese curse says, incredibly interesting. May you live in interesting times. I would be okay with calm times and complacent times, but interesting as it is. Buckle up, you guys. I think it's time to buckle up. It's time to understand that best laid plans need to be reevaluated from time to time. And when you get to the end of a large macro environment and a system that's coming to an end, you have recency bias and normalcy bias that is very hard to shake. And trust your gut. Your gut is your best financial advisor, not your financial advisor who tells you you're foolish to have these thoughts. Quite to the contrary. Many financial advisors, not all of them, I'm not going to pigeonhole them, but many of them learn more and more about less and less till they know everything about nothing. And if you're watching this video thinking to yourself, I wanted to buy gold, my advisor told me it was silly, remember whose money it is. And remember, you probably know more about what's happening in the world by watching Andrew Maguire and learning about this stuff than your advisor does. Certainly, I would say, education and intellect and being well-read doesn't translate anymore because a lot of these people are just reading the wrong stuff. And that's the problem. So, God bless you, man, for doing what you're doing. And like I said, I always like coming in the vault, and anytime that I have the opportunity, I hope you'll drag me back in because it's an honor to talk with someone like yourself who's doing so much and who gets it. And I look very, very forward to picking up where we left off, hopefully not too far down the road. I think there'll be a lot to talk about between now and the next time we do chat.
I feel privileged to have you on. And the thing is, so here's the end. This is the action point I'm going to say to people. Sitting in front of you is somebody I can unequivocally tell you is 100% trustworthy. And if you are looking, you've never bought gold before or silver before, and you're looking to buy it from a reputable place where you know it's a full 999 fast bar, that it is going to arrive in the post or whatever it is, I would promise you, you must contact Andy Schectman. He is undoubtedly, I've known him many, many years, and undoubtedly the person, this is your action point. This is your moment of self-responsibility. Take this information and take whatever little dollars you don't need today. And obviously I'm not saying sell everything because you need to pay your bills, but take whatever you really are squirreling away that is being debased rapidly. Go and see Andy, swap it into something that is never going to depreciate and is going to protect you. And that's the action point I will leave everyone with today. But Andy, thank you so much for turning up and turning up into our vault again today. It is my privilege to have you here. And definitely, I can't wait for the next time that we catch up.
Likewise, brother. Likewise. I hope you and everyone out there and your families stay well over these crazy times, and buckle up. Look forward to chatting with you again soon, Andrew. You stay well, my man.
Bless you. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, Andrew Maguire and Andy Schectman, for another fascinating discussion. And remember, to all of our community, buy physical. Make sure it's backed 1-to-1 and understand the difference between what Andy calls the casino paper gold and silver markets and the actual physical gold and silver markets. They're not the same, and don't be fooled. So there you have it. That's all we have for you today on another amazing episode of Live from the Vault. And please help keep spreading the word about this channel by hitting that like button if you haven't already done so. Share this information so more people can find the channel. And if you haven't already subscribed, hit the subscribe link. And if you want to be notified in real time as each episode goes live, just hit the bell and we'll do just that. So with that, we'll see you right here next time on Live from the Vault. See you then.